So there's a gentleman by the name of Sadi. He was a Persian poet many, many years ago. And he wrote these words. He said, "I fear God, and next to God, I mostly fear them that fear him not." And then after reading that, I read a story about the king of the country Hungary. And this is what the story said. It said, one time, many years ago, the king of Hungary found himself depressed and very unhappy. And it was probably a guilt-related thing that was causing that. So he sent for his brother, who was a good-natured but rather indifferent prince, and the king said to him, "I am a great sinner, and I fear to meet God." But the prince mocked him or laughed at him. And this didn't help the king's disposition any. Though he was a believer, the king had gotten a glimpse of his guilt for the way that he'd been living lately. And he seriously wanted help. In those days, it was customary if the executioner sounded a trumpet before a man's door at any hour, it was a signal that that man was going to be led to his execution. Well, the king sent the executioner in the dead of the night to sound the fateful blast at his brother's door. The prince realized with horror what was happening. Quickly he got dressed and he stepped to the door, and he was seized by the executioner and dragged pale and trembling into the king's presence. And in an agony of terror he fell on his knees before his brother the king, and he begged to know how he had offended him. "My brother," answered the king, "if the sight of a human executioner is so terrible to you, shall not I, having grievously offended God, fear to be brought before the judgment seat of Christ?" Now, I'm not so sure that we need to fear being brought before the judgment seat of Christ, but to laugh at the idea of fearing God probably tells you something. In fact, the first proverb in the Bible, in the book of Proverbs, calls anyone who does not fear God a fool. What exactly is the fear of God? Is it being terrified of him? Is it simply just being respectful of him? Or is it being afraid to do what is wrong because of the consequences that God could dole out on you? And I suppose that likely it's maybe a combination of all three of those things to some degree. Proverbs chapter 1 and verse 7 says, "The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and instruction." If we want to have any true knowledge, it has to start out with the realization of the existence of the one true God, and a fear and a respect that pushes us towards knowing him and what he believes in. But those that don't care about God or desire to know anything about God just have absolutely zero healthy fear of him or respect for him at all. And as a result, they're actually destined to be ever separated from wisdom and knowledge. They will never care about truth, because the first step in gaining true knowledge and wisdom is fearing the Lord and caring about what he says. Is fear of God meant to be our main driver then as a Christian? No. Our main driver is designed to morph from fear into love. The book of 1 John explains that comment, or that concept, or that ideology, when it says that perfect love casts out fear. But the whole process cannot start if we refuse to care about what God cares about, or if we have no fear of God in us. And that is what you're seeing happening to so many people nowadays that are rejecting God completely. They have no fear or respect for who God is, or at all of what God says. And they have come up with their own ideas that are, and this is what's funny, these ideas are quite obviously stupid. Yet, they think that they are wise and that they are right. And it all happened because they missed the first step in gaining wisdom and knowledge: the fear of the Lord. And if we stop caring about what God believes in and what God says, we too will join the ranks of fools. Fools who despise wisdom and instruction. And then we will type words into our social media accounts that make absolutely no sense, all while thinking we are man's little geniuses. So let's avoid doing that by remembering a very basic but true fact. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. Think on that today. We'll see you soon.